It was supposed to be an ordinary school day. Students filled the crowded hallway between classes, laughter and chatter echoing against the lockers. Among them walked a quiet, graceful girl, Manny Pacquiao's daughter. Most of her classmates didn't even treat her like she was the child of a world-famous champion. To them, she was just another student, blending in, humble and kind, but not everyone saw her that way. A boy known around campus for his arrogance and cruelty spotted her that morning. He had built his reputation on intimidation, preying on students who wouldn't fight back. To him, picking on Manny's daughter was just another chance to prove his dominance. At first, it started with mocking words. "Hey, you think you're better than us because of your dad? You think you're special?" His voice carried through the hall, drawing attention. She tried to ignore him, keeping her composure just like her father had always taught her. But the bully wasn't finished. He wanted a reaction. Without warning, he shoved her against a locker. The crowd gasped. A circle began to form, students pulling out their phones, recording the shocking scene. Then the boy crossed the line. He grabbed her by the neck, squeezing as if to prove his power. The hallway fell silent. Her friends screamed for him to stop. Some students ran for help while others just froze, too scared to intervene. Her face tightened, not with fear, but with determination. She remembered her father's words. Strength isn't about hurting others. It's about standing tall even when you're afraid. Still, she was trapped. The bully sneered, enjoying the attention, enjoying the control. Every second felt heavier. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. The daughter of one of the greatest fighters alive being humiliated in front of them. And then came the moment no one expected. The cameras kept rolling. The whispers grew louder, and the world was about to find out that when you mess with Manny Pacquiao's daughter, you're not just dealing with an ordinary girl. But what the bully never expected was who would show up next. The bully's grip tightened, his hand pressing against her throat. Students nearby cried out in shock, but none dared to step forward. The hallway, once filled with chatter, was now consumed by a heavy silence broken only by gasps and hurried footsteps of those running to get a teacher. Her eyes widened, but she didn't scream. She refused to give him that satisfaction. She stood her ground even as fear coursed through her veins. Somewhere deep inside, she clung to her father's teachings. Dignity is your shield. Even in the darkest moment, never let someone steal it from you. But dignity alone wasn't enough to free her. The bully smirked, tightening his hold. "What's the matter? Where's your champion dad now? He's not here to save you." His voice dripped with arrogance, the words echoing across the frozen crowd. Phones were raised higher now. Dozens of students were recording, their eyes darting between the bully and the girl who was fighting to stay calm. Some whispered nervously, "Isn't that Pacquiao's daughter? Wait, is this real? This is going to blow up online." But no one intervened. Fear paralyzed them. Her friends shouted desperately, "Let her go!" Their voices cracked with panic, but the bully only laughed, his grip unrelenting. He was intoxicated by the attention, blinded by his own ego. For Manny's daughter, seconds felt like hours. She could feel the weight of every camera lens on her, every breath stolen by the bully's arrogance. Yet she didn't crumble. Instead, she locked eyes with him, not with fear, but with a fire he didn't expect. The crowd felt it too. Something about her calm defiance unsettled even those watching. The whispers grew louder. Students who once admired the bully's confidence now shifted uncomfortably, realizing this wasn't just typical school drama. This was cruelty, somewhere. A teacher's voice echoed faintly, rushing toward the scene. But the bully didn't stop. He wanted to prove he was untouchable, even in front of authority. He squeezed harder, leaning in. "Let's see how tough you really are." Gasps rippled through the hallway. For a moment, it looked like no one would stop him. But destiny was already at work. The video, shaky and grainy, was already being shared. Within minutes, it would spread far beyond the school's walls, reaching the one man in the world the bully should have feared the most. And when that man showed up, nothing would ever be the same again. Have you ever seen a bully pick on someone weaker just to look powerful? Where are you watching from? And what would you have done if you were there? The hallway buzzed with chaos. Students jostled for space, their phones raised high, the glow of recording screens reflecting in nervous eyes. The bully still held Manny Pacquiao's daughter by the neck, determined to prove his power. Her friends cried out for help, their voices cracking. but fear anchored most students in place. Teachers hadn't yet arrived. For a few long, agonizing minutes, the school had no authority. Only the bullies' twisted control. But then a whisper rose above the tension. "Wait, isn't that Manny Pacquiao's daughter?" The words rippled through the crowd like electricity. More whispers followed, each one spreading faster than the last. "No way, are you serious?" "I think it is. I saw her with him once after a boxing match." "That means her dad is the Manny Pacquiao?" Students exchanged wide-eyed glances. The atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, this wasn't just an act of bullying. This was an act against the daughter of a legend. The realization only deepened the suspense. The bully, however, laughed at the whispers. "Pacquiao's daughter, please. Do you think I care who she is?" His voice dripped with arrogance as he glared at the phones recording him. "Your daddy isn't here to save you," but his words rang hollow. The students weren't laughing with him anymore. In fact, some began to step back, uneasy about being associated with his cruelty. The tide of the crowd was turning against him. Still, the girl held her composure. Her father's words echoed in her memory. "Strength is calm. Even when others try to break you, don't let them take your spirit." She refused to cry, refused to scream. That quiet defiance, even in the face of humiliation, made the bully uneasy. He tightened his grip again. Desperate to maintain control, phones continued to record. And within moments, clips began appearing online. The title flashed across feeds. "Bully attacks Pacquiao's daughter at school." In less than 5 minutes, the video had already reached thousands. And beyond the school walls, destiny was moving. But inside the hallway, tension peaked. The bully's smirk faltered as he noticed the crowd wasn't cheering him on. Instead, their eyes were fixed on the girl, her bravery, her composure, her quiet resistance. For the first time, cracks of doubt showed in his face. He had sought power, but instead he had exposed himself. And then came the moment that would seal his fate forever. A teacher burst into the hallway, pushing through the crowd, shouting for him to let go. But before she could act, a ripple of excitement swept the students. Their phones buzzed with notifications all at once. The video had reached someone who wouldn't just watch in silence. The man whose fists had made nations roar. The champion who carried the pride of millions. The father who would do anything to protect his children. Manny Pacquiao had seen the video, and he was already on his way. What would you do if you saw a bully attacking someone in public? Step in, record it, or walk away? Comment your honest answer below. The hallway was still frozen in tension. The bully kept his grip on her neck, trying to maintain control, but his confidence was slipping. The whispers around him had changed. Students weren't impressed anymore. They were disgusted, and worse for him, the cameras didn't lie. The shaky footage of the attack had already gone online. By now, it was racing across social media platforms at lightning speed. On TikTok, captions screamed, "Bully chokes Pacquiao's daughter at school." On Instagram, clips hit thousands of views in minutes. On Twitter, hashtags began trending. Pacquiao, bullying must stop. The bully had wanted attention, but not like this. His arrogance had unleashed a storm he couldn't control. Meanwhile, in a quiet office across town, Manny Pacquiao's phone buzzed. At first, he thought it was another flood of fan messages, but when he opened the video, his heart stopped. There, on the small screen, was his daughter, her back against the lockers, the bully's hand around her throat, her face flushed but defiant. He heard the students shouting in the background. He saw her refusing to break down. Manny's jaw tightened. The champion who had once stepped into rings against the most dangerous fighters in the world now faced the hardest sight of his life, his child under attack. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Anger burned hot in his chest, but beneath it, a father's resolve solidified. This wasn't about boxing. This wasn't about pride. This was about protecting his daughter and teaching the world a lesson about strength and respect. Manny didn't waste another second. He stood up, his presence commanding even in silence. His team, sensing the urgency in his eyes, asked, "What's wrong, champ?" He only said 4 words, "She needs me. Now." Back at the school, the tension reached a breaking point. The teacher pleaded with the bully to release her, but he held on, his pride fueling his stubbornness. The crowd booed softly now, a dangerous sign for him. The audience that once gave him power had turned into his jury. Then the doors at the end of the hallway swung open. Students craned their necks, some standing on tiptoes to see who was coming. The sound of footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, each step heavier than the last. Gasps spread like wildfire. "No way. Is that?" It can't be. But it was. Manny Pacquiao himself was walking down that hallway. His eyes were locked on one thing and one thing only: his daughter. The air shifted. The bully's smirk finally faded, replaced by fear he couldn't hide. The legendary fighter didn't need to raise his fists. His presence alone was enough to silence an entire school. And though he was known as one of the greatest boxers in history, in that moment he wasn't a champion, wasn't a senator, wasn't a celebrity. He was a father who had just arrived to stand between his child and the one who dared to harm her. If you were Manny Pacquiao walking into that hallway, would you confront the bully directly, or let the school handle it? Comment your choice below. The hallway was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the heavy, suffocating silence before a storm. Manny Pacquiao's footsteps echoed against the tiled floor as he moved closer. Each step carried the weight of decades in the ring, every battle, every triumph. But this was different. This wasn't a fight for belts or glory. This was personal. The crowd parted as if by instinct. Students lowered their phones, some trembling with disbelief. Teachers stepped aside. Nobody needed an announcement. Everyone knew who had just arrived. The bully froze, his hand still on her throat. His once arrogant grin twisted into confusion and fear. For the first time that day, he realized he wasn't the strongest person in the room. Manny's daughter looked up, her eyes meeting her father's. Relief washed over her face. She didn't need to say a word. He was there. That was enough. Manny stopped just a few feet away. His gaze was sharp, steady, but his voice was calm. Almost too calm. "Let her go!" The bully hesitated, his pride clashing with fear. For a split second, he thought about holding his ground, about saving face in front of his classmates. But Manny's presence was overwhelming. It wasn't just his reputation as a fighter. It was the aura of a man who had stared down giants and never flinched. The boy's grip loosened and Manny's daughter stepped free, rubbing her neck gently. Manny extended his arm, guiding her behind him with the quiet protectiveness only a father could show. Now his eyes fixed fully on the bully. "You think you're strong," Manny said softly, his words carrying through the hall. "But strength isn't choking someone weaker than you. Strength isn't humiliating others for attention." The crowd listened, every ear tuned in. The bully's face burned red. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Manny stepped closer, his presence towering, though his voice never rose. Real strength is protecting. It's lifting people up, not pushing them down. What you did today isn't power. It's weakness. The hallway erupted in whispers. Students who once looked up to the bully now stared at him with disappointment. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't fearless. He was exposed. The bully shifted on his feet, avoiding Manny's eyes. For the first time, his arrogance cracked. He wasn't facing a student, a teacher, or even a principal. He was facing Manny Pacquiao, a man who had bled, suffered, and risen to greatness through respect and discipline. Manny didn't need fists. His words were heavier than punches. Finally, he said, "One day you'll understand that hurting others only makes you small. But today you will remember this moment. You will remember what real strength looks like." The crowd burst into quiet cheers, some clapping, others nodding in agreement. Manny didn't gloat, didn't shout. He simply turned to his daughter, checking her carefully, his hand resting on her shoulder with a father's gentleness. The bully stood frozen, humiliated, his false bravado stripped away. And just like that, the balance of power in that hallway shifted forever. The hallway still hummed with whispers. The students could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. Manny Pacquiao, the people's champion, a legend of the boxing world, was standing right there in their school defending his daughter. The bully, once the self-proclaimed king of the campus, now stood small, his eyes darting nervously between Manny and the sea of phones recording every second. His confidence had evaporated. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear of being hit, but from the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. Manny looked around the hallway, then back at the boy. His expression was calm, not angry, but filled with the authority of someone who had earned respect in every corner of the world. "You wanted everyone to look at you," Manny said, his voice steady, "and now they are. But not because of your strength. Because of your weakness, the students murmured, their phones still raised. Every word Manny spoke was being captured, shared, and already racing across the internet. The bully swallowed hard, his pride shattered. He tried to speak, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't mean— Manny raised his hand gently, silencing him. Listen, I've fought the best fighters in the world. Men bigger, faster, stronger than me. But the toughest battles aren't in the ring. They're here, he pointed to his chest, in the heart. Real courage is not about hurting the weak. It's about protecting them. His words carried across the hallway like a sermon. Students who once laughed at bullying now looked ashamed. Teachers, standing at the edges, nodded solemnly. Even Manny's daughter, standing beside him, held her head high with pride. The bully dropped his gaze, unable to meet Manny's eyes. The silence of the hallway told him everything. His reign of intimidation was over. Manny softened his tone, though it still carried weight. You're young. You can change. But if you keep choosing this path, hurting, humiliating, destroying others for fun, you will never be respected. You will be feared, yes, but fear is fragile. Respect lasts forever. The boy's shoulders slumped. For the first time, the bully looked less like a monster and more like a child. Lost, ashamed, exposed. The crowd began clapping, not the wild applause of fans at a fight, but the steady rhythm of agreement. Students raised their voices. He's right. Respect is real strength. No more bullies. The atmosphere shifted. What began as a moment of cruelty had transformed into a lesson the entire school, and soon the entire world, would never forget. Manny turned to his daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Are you all right? He asked softly. She nodded, a small smile breaking through her shaken expression. He placed a protective arm around her, shielding her from the crowd. Then, with one last glance at the bully, he delivered the closing line that would echo far beyond those walls. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Those who fight for others are the strongest of all. And with that, Manny guided his daughter away, leaving behind a silence so powerful it weighed on every heart in the room. The bully stood frozen, drenched in humiliation. The legend had spoken. The lesson was sealed. By the time Manny Pacquiao and his daughter walked out of the school, the world had already begun to watch. The video of the confrontation spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, it dominated every social platform. Millions of people clicked, shared, and commented in disbelief. Headlines flashed across screens. Bully attacks Manny Pacquiao's daughter. The champion's response stuns the world. Clips of the hallway moment racked up millions of views. Manny's calm but commanding words were replayed again and again. Real courage is not about hurting the weak. It's about protecting them. Fans, parents, athletes, and even world leaders shared the clip, praising Manny not just as a fighter, but as a father and a role model. Comments poured in. This is why Manny will always be a champion in and out of the ring. Respect lasts forever. Fear dies quick. Every bully in the world needs to see this. Meanwhile, the bully's life flipped upside down. At school, his reputation crumbled overnight. Students who once followed his lead now avoided him. Teachers disciplined him severely, and his family, embarrassed by his behavior, was forced to confront the shame he brought upon them. The arrogance that once made him feared had been replaced with silence. He had become the example no one wanted to follow. For Manny's daughter, the story was different. She walked the halls the next day with her head held high, supported by classmates who now saw her not as a victim, but as someone incredibly brave. She hadn't cried, hadn't broken down, and that quiet strength had inspired an entire generation of students. As for Manny, he refused to boast. When reporters asked him about the incident, he simply said, "I'm not proud that it happened. No father wants to see his child attacked, but I am proud my daughter stayed strong, and I hope this teaches us all kindness is not weakness. We must raise a world where respect is stronger than fear." Those words became a rallying cry. Schools invited him to speak about bullying. Parents showed the video to their children as a lesson. Fighters, athletes, and celebrities echoed the message. The story wasn't just about a hallway fight anymore. It became a symbol. A reminder that even legends like Manny Pacquiao don't win by fists alone, but by heart, humility, and courage. In the end, the bully had been humbled, the school had learned, and the world had been reminded of a timeless truth. Respect is the greatest victory of all. If you believe no one should ever be judged, bullied, or mistreated, type respect in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.